Comencem la roda de premsa. Comencem la roda de premsa amb el jugador Dani Alves. Recordeu, sisplau, que és una pregunta per torn i també he de dir el vostre nom i el mitjà pel qual treballeu abans de formular la pregunta. Gràcies. Por favor.
Dani, buenas tardes. Aquí. Jesús Carrillo de Barça TV. Habéis jugado ya 3 partidos con el Atlético de Madrid.
3 games against Atletico Madrid this season.
Podido ganar en 3 partidos. Ellos tampoco se han podido ganar.
Neither team have been able to win.
Esta eliminatoria, que es un equipo muy competitivo y que os conoce y le conocéis.
You know each other very well, very competitive. What do you expect tomorrow?
Pienso que no podemos mirar mucho hacia atrás porque son
We can't look
otros partidos,
back at what's happened.
competición,
Different games, different competitions those were.
digamos otro momento y
Different moments of the season.
evidente que son dos rivales pues, que
Obviously,
propone cosas diferentes.
these are two teams who have different ideas,
Y por eso el equilibrio, ¿no? Pero
and
pienso que
maybe that's why
hemos de dar un
the
paso
games have been
hacia
so
adelante,
even.
sabiendo de que es importante conseguir un gran resultado.
We know
aquí,
it's important
porque,
for us to get a very good result here,
en el siguiente partido.
so that we can decide the tie in the second
Es
leg.
importante que nosotros compitamos bien y
It's important for us to
intentemos,
compete
pues,
well.
que este paso hacia adelante que demos
And as I say, it's
sea
important for us to
para
take a
conseguir
step
una
forward.
victoria y quebrar esa
We want to
racha
get a
de los
victory, and we want to carry on this good run we're on at the moment.
Uno de los objetivos es frenar a Diego Costa, que pasa por uno de los...
One of the objectives will be to stop Diego Costa.
¿Estas horas, estos días?
Yo pienso que lo que hemos hablado es que vamos a tener un partido difícil.
What we've talked about in terms of that is that, well, it's going to be a hard game. As for Diego Costa, he's a great player. He's been making all the difference for Atletico recently. But Atletico Madrid is much more than Diego Costa. They've got great quality throughout the team. The intensity of their play makes things very, very difficult. Obviously, we have to keep an eye on Diego because he's the one who's scoring the goals for them at the moment.
Dani, aquesta temporada t'has queixat en alguna ocasió de la poca assistència de públic, que potser a vegades el públic no...
There's been talk this season about the fans not turning up for certain games. What do you expect tomorrow in that respect?
Bueno, yo pienso que en el mundo que vivimos, yo pienso que a veces
I think that's in the world that we live in.
parece que hay que ser de mentira, ¿no? Y
There are times when
no va
people
muchísimo
do
conmigo,
lie.
yo soy de verdad y parece que la gente no está
I just want to
acostumbrada a
tell
escuchar
the truth.
de verdad. Y yo cuando me quejé en su momento, porque,
I have
me
complained
parecía
about
de
that,
que
if that's the case, if that's what
la
people
gente
say.
estaba dejando de acudir al Camp Nou,
I'm sure
estaba
that
exigiendo
they'll be
muchísimo, pero apoyando
coming
poco.
to Camp Nou and they're going to
Y
really
por
help
eso,
us.
pues, mi exigencia. En otros momentos, pues, la gente se ha volcado con nosotros, la gente
The fans have often been right there
nos ha
for us, behind
apoyado
us.
y
They've
ha visto que
been
el
there
resultado ha sido
supporting us,
positivo.
and
Entonces,
you can
cuando
see
hay
that the
esa
results have been
conexión, pues,
positive. And there's this
el
connection
resultado
between the
es
fans and the team,
siempre bueno,
and it's always
y
been
cuando
very
no hay,
good.
pues,
When it doesn't happen,
pues tendrán que escucharme, ¿no? Porque
then, well, we've got
normalmente
to
yo mi verdad,
think
pues,
about it
lo
and
voy a
listen to what
defender
people say.
siempre.
I always want to defend
Lo
our
único que
interests.
trataba también es de hacer entender a la gente de que el Barcelona somos nosotros, y si nosotros, pues,
Barcelona,
no
that's
vamos a
all
la
of us
una,
together.
pues,
That's what I say to
difícilmente
all the fans.
conseguiremos los objetivos. Y al final, pues, cuando hacemos
It's very difficult to achieve our objectives
el
if
paseo por la calle,
we're
pues,
just
todos queremos
acting as
disfrutar, ¿no?
individuals.
Entonces,
We
para
want
disfrutar,
everybody
pues, hay que
to
colaborar.
to
Para colaborar
enjoy
tenemos que ir al Camp
what
Nou,
we do,
nosotros,
and we have to collaborate to do that.
pelear y ellos, pues, animar. Entonces,
We want
si
them
no
to
es
come
así,
to
pues, cada
Camp Nou
uno, pues,
to support us, and we'll be out there
quiera, ¿no?
fighting for
Pero
them.
yo, esa es mi verdad y, pues,
That's
la
the way I
defiendo
see it.
así. No es novedad que yo,
It's
pues,
nothing new
sea transparente
that
en
I'm
mis
transparent
declaraciones
in what I say
y mis ideas.
and in the way I think.
Hola Dani, 3 partidos de temporada entre Atlético, no habéis ganado ninguno, ellos tampoco. ¿Es
¿Es el rival más duro o más difícil?
3 games, neither team has won against each other. Is this the most difficult tie that you could have got? Well, the results are there. As you say, these games have been very, very even. But this run of draws is going to be broken at some point. We know that Atletico Madrid are playing very well at the moment, and we hope it's going to be a great game. And I hope that we can make a giant step towards getting through to the semi-finals tomorrow. The team is hoping to win the treble, and will this tie help in the other competitions? And Dani says, well, no, it's not going to help in the other competitions because this is the Champions League. In this profession, in football, sometimes it's a little unfair because you look to the past and memories can be very short in football. 4 or 5 years this team has been up there. People have been saying that there's going to be problems, and that's after we've lost the game. And Barça played a lot in this competition and in the others too. And there's talk about Barça being in chaos, being in crisis. But we're in with chances in all competitions. It seems that people are... There's a campaign to suggest that we're coming to the end of a cycle. But when the cycle comes to a close, you start a new cycle. And we just have to remain calm all the time. Good times, bad times, because everything can happen. We always have to believe in ourselves. And that's even if we take a step forward or a step back at any one time. A question about what the dressing room thinks in terms of the refereeing decisions. Well, that's not going to be a motivation for us, the refereeing decisions. That's something that we're used to. It's just a question of putting in the work in every day. And it just forms part of our daily routine. Every time that Barça wins, there's a question about the referees, and when Barça lose, people say that the cycle has come to a conclusion. There's no balance in these things, I think. I think neither positively or negatively these things are going to affect us. Barça have got so much to offer the game of football, and it's because of the way that Barça play the game. And it's not a question of opinions, it's just the way that Barça works. It depends on Barça's ambition, and it depends on the great players that we've got here at the club.
Amb això donaríem per acabat el torn de preguntes. Gràcies.
Hola Dani, Elena Condis, Cadena COPE. Tú hablabas de la exigencia del Camp Nou de los aficionados. ¿Tú crees que se está siendo demasiado o un poco exigente con Neymar?
Do you think that the Barça fans have been too demanding of Neymar?
O demasiado poco. Demasiado.
Too demanding.
Yo pienso que lo normal es el proceso que está viviendo ahora.
Well, the normal thing is the process that we're going through right now. What isn't normal is a faster adaptation for Neymar, because everybody has to learn how things work. Changes in the culture and changes in football. It's a bit more organized in Europe. teams can be a bit tougher. But I think that the criticism came after the fuss around his contract, because before that happened, Neymar was working perfectly well. He was very happy, but this question about his contracts, it changed. And if he's been paid a certain amount, it's because he's worth it. He might be paid more money than other kinds of players. But you've got to evaluate him and assess him in terms of how he plays and how the team plays, not in terms of his contract.
Hablando de personas señaladas, este año, sobre todo cuando empezó el equipo a perder partidos como la Noeta en Valladolid, se señalaba y mucho a la defensa.
A question about the defense, especially when the team has lost this season. Do you think that, as people say, it's the weak points of the team?
Yo pienso que para mí es una alegría, porque
well, it makes me happy when people talk about the defense, because I play in the defense.
Yo pienso que la gente va entendiendo que es trabajo de todos y no de uno del otro.
I think that people now understand that it's a team game. Everybody's involved. It's not just a question of one or two players.
A nuestro equipo, ¿no? Y bueno, si lo ha visto que el pero está ahí, pues no pasa nada, ¿no? Y trataremos de intentar mejorar.
We're just trying to improve in that respect, and that's what we're aiming to do. We're trying to do things differently from the way other teams do it. We don't think of ourselves as a normal team, an ordinary team. We're a team that has an influence in the football, so the youngsters can see that they're a kind of team that takes chances. And I've been here for 5 years, and we've been at the top of the game. And it's great when we win things, when we achieve things, and when we concede goals. Well, it's a disaster, isn't it? But on we go. The Champions League is very special for this club. You've always got to the semi-final in your time here. That's nothing special, getting to the semi-finals. Semi-finals, that's not enough. With this game against Atletico Madrid, there's a suggestion that because you're playing a Spanish team in the Champions League, will that have an influence on the way you go into the game? Different from playing Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester United. The fact you're playing a Spanish club, will that have an influence on the approach? And Dani Alves says, no, it's exactly the same. It's there's a suggestion that maybe the draw was a little unusual, and Barca always getting the tough draw. Every time we're getting these hard draws, but that's great for us too. And we'll just try and enjoy the tie. We'll be going into the game as professionally as we always do. Certainly one of the hardest teams left in the competition, Atletico Madrid. Very hard work playing Atletico Madrid, but winning the Champions League, you've got to beat the best teams. And we accept the challenge. This is what gets us going in this particular competition. The things that get us going in life in general are the great challenges. It's going to be very passionate, and we'll be getting ready for it, preparing for it, and looking forward to it. A question about the fuss about the derby game against Espanyol the other day. Question about the league campaign, what you're thinking in the dressing room. Dani Alves hasn't quite understood the question. You mentioned a campaign against Barça, a campaign so that Barça come to the end of the cycle. What do you think about this campaign? In what way is it shown, do you think, in the dressing room? Well, I can't talk for anyone else, but it's the way I see it. The grand majority of people lack information. They don't quite know what's happening in football. People have a lot of opinions about football, but maybe they don't know so much about football. That's the great difference. The great majority of people, with all respect in the world to journalists, it's very different studying the theory and knowing the practice. So you see something mentioned, and it's what fans think. For example, not long ago, Barça had lost the league. The league was between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, people were saying. A week later, and then Real Madrid were out of it, and it was between Barça and Atletico. These things that are said, sometimes what they need to do is to forget who their team is and look at it more objectively. Sometimes what you hear, you hear things on the radio, because there's a Madridismo, talking about Madrid on radio programs. If it's Madrid, it's Madrid. If you're Barça, it's Barça. But in general, the fact is that some commentators wear the club shirts underneath the regular clothes, and really it's a lack of understanding about how the profession works. And they talk in terms of extremes and they lack balance. When the opinions are more objective inside football, that's fine, but I don't take any notice of certain commentators.
Hola, Dani. Josep Soda de La Sexta. Jugones no está mal, también a las 3, a la misma hora.
¿Ah, sí? Sí. A las 3. Voy a empezar a ver los jugones ahora.
3 o'clock we'll be able to listen to the commentator. Dani Alves was talking about Manolo.
Te quería preguntar, en estos últimos partidos, como consecuencia, supongo que has leído prensa, has oído radio, la tele, se han pitado 3 penaltis a favor de Barça.
Barça have been given 3 penalties in the last couple of games. And there's been a lot of talk about the referees. Well, seriously, I think this is ridiculous because, for example, you're talking about the referees in... There were 2 home penalties and there was one that wasn't given. You talk about those 2 particular penalties that maybe weren't penalties. It would be more logical if it was the other way around. So I really don't understand why people complain. The fact is that the refereeing decisions were against us. And there was a penalty given against us that was a metre outside the area. It's us that should be complaining, nobody else. But because you've got a particular shirt underneath...
Endavant, endavant, Joan.
Dani, Juan Martínez de La Vanguardia, volviendo un poco al partido de mañana, has dicho antes que uno de los puntos fuertes del Atlético es la intensidad.
You said that Atletico Madrid are a very intense team. How will you combat that? Yes, what we've got to try and do tomorrow is combat their intensity. We've got to try and keep the ball. We have to try and make sure our game is fluid. We don't want it to be interrupted. We want to control the game. You play the game with just the one ball. We have to make sure they don't get chances. We don't want to give them the opportunity to cause us problems. So the only way that we'll get through is by playing our game. We have to play our game, as I say, we have to have a lot of the ball, and we have to try and make chances. Question about the derby game, a lot of fouls against Neymar. A question of protection. When the other team plays a very physical game, then the games can get a little more passionate. One thing is being intensity in the game in general, and then again there's a different kind of intensity. And the referees have to keep an eye on that. They have to protect the players. You have to be competitive in football, but there is a limit. When you step over that limit, then the referees have to intervene.
Dani, buenos días. Buenos días. Y Chaverna para el diario ABC. Siempre decís, habéis comentado que el año pasado llegasteis muy justos al final de la temporada.
Last season, Barça were tiring towards the end of the season.
Se ha cumplido un año y la pregunta es muy sencilla. ¿Cómo os veis respecto al año pasado?
In terms of last season, how do you think the team is? I think we're in a much better state this season than last season because everybody's in good shape going into the final stages of the season.
Hemos oscilado en algunos momentos de este año de las competiciones.
There have been times when we've had problems in the various competitions, but in the key parts of the competitions, the team's morale is very, very good, and that's very positive. And it reflects on all the work we've put in throughout the season. We're playing our best football of the season. In the next month, everything is going to be pretty much decided. We have to make this final effort because I think that it's worth the effort. And we're going to continue with the cycle.
Quería saber qué ¿qué crees que está aportando en esta fase del campeonato Andrés Iniesta?
Andrés Iniesta, what's he bringing to the team at this stage this stage of the season? Yes, he certainly is an important player, key player for us.
Una pregunta muy inteligente con una respuesta muy sencilla, ¿no?
An intelligent question and a simple answer.
Desde que llegaba este futbolista,
ever since I came here, Andrés Iniesta has been a great player, but now he's just been absolutely brilliant.
Tener un punto final te sorprende con otras cosas, ¿no? Y yo soy un poco sospechoso para hablar de Andrés, porque es una persona.
Talking about Andrés, I really admire him.
Yo pienso que tendría que tener un Balón de Oro en sus
I think that he should win the Ballon d'Or. He should have had one. He should have won the Ballon d'Or in the past. That would have made sense, given the kind of footballer he is, given the fact that he's brought so many fantastic things to football. I think that we should change the way that the Ballon d'Or is organized, because players like Andrés Iniesta and Xavi, neither of them have won the Ballon d'Or, and I'd like to see that the way they organize the Ballon d'Or change so that players like those could win it.
Mis amigos me encargan de informarme de todo eso. Yo cada vez veo menos, pero las informaciones siempre llegan.
Dani says that he always watches the TV and people keep him informed about what's said in the press and the media. A question about his future at Barca. And Dani says that for the last 3 years, it's been said that they've been looking for a new right back. And he goes on to say that he feels good, he's working as he always worked. But I respect, and he says, I respect the ideas of the club. And a club is a business, and when there's doubt about how the club's working, it's normal to look for alternatives. People might think I'm not capable of more, but I always like to prove people wrong when they think that. But I think people are talking about these things less and less. But the results are what counts, and if the results are positive, then I'd like to stay here, and if not, well, then the club's going to look for an alternative. But the fact is, I'm very happy to be here at Barca, and I hope, and I want to stay here as long as I can. When people talk about the possibilities about someone else coming in, that's no problem. But and if I mention it, that's no problem either. Question about whether Dani would be happy with a draw. He says no. His team are going to go out to win the game tomorrow. In life in general, you've got to try and achieve things. And it depends on the way you look at it, the way you approach it. So I'm not going to settle for anything before a game like tomorrow. So I'm certainly not going to accept a draw. If you say, will you accept a victory? Of course. If you say, are you going to accept a draw? Well, no, that's different. We're going to go out to win, and that's all there is to it. Talking about Neymar and European football. Question about how Neymar feels at the moment.
Si no está centrado, pues ya se está encargando de centrarse, porque estamos llegando en lo mejor de la temporada, donde dependemos de cada uno de
Neymar is very important for us, and he's part of the squad in a big way.
Es normal las
But
exigencias.
it's normal, the demands that are made of Neymar.
La gente solo exige de quién puede dar, ¿no?
People demand things of people who can actually perform, and that's why they're demanding of Neymar, because he can do it.
Si hoy aporta un 10, mañana tiene que aportar un 15.
If today he brings a score of 10, then in the future it's got to be 15 or 20. It's not a question of I don't have to show anything to anybody. You've got to show what you can do in football, because if you don't, you move backwards. It's a question of what you can bring to the team always in football. And that's always the case. You've always got to try and improve, you've always got to try and demand more, you've got to try and grow as a player and as a person. Because it's the special players who can do things differently, people like Neymar. Any particular player in Atletico Madrid that Barca have got to fear? Well, obviously, there are a lot of players of great quality. But if I've only got one choice, I'd choose Diego Costa, no doubt about it. But if I could choose more, then I would. But I'd mention Diego Costa in particular. He's been playing so well, not just in terms of the goals he scores, the work he puts in as well. And I love the way that players who work very hard. Just want to make sure that you think that Neymar's morale's high, and Dani says yes, his morale's fine. Maybe the criticism has affected him? No, I don't think that the criticism has affected his game, what he actually he's done on the pitch. But when people criticize your dad, then it can have an effect on you. But I see him working the same as everyone else in the squad. To be a great football player, you have to separate what's your life and your work. You can't mix the two things. That causes problems. If you mix these things, then yes, that's going to affect what you do as a player. But he's been defending his interests and his family. And it's a question of opinions, and there are opinions and different tastes. He's got to have a ham and cheese sandwich and a cup of coffee for lunch.
que és una sola pregunta per torn. Gràcies. Sisplau, comencem la roda de premsa. No, perdona.
Entrenador, buenas tardes. ¿Cómo le va? 3 partidos contra el Atlético de Madrid.
3 games against Atletico Madrid, haven't been able to win either team, all 3 draws. Is this the hardest game that you could have had given the current form that Atletico Madrid are in? They won away at Athletic Bilbao on Saturday. Is it in fact the worst team that Barça could have had at this stage of the competition? Well, really, we didn't need them to win away at Athletic Bilbao on Saturday for us to realise what a good team they are. They've had a great season. They had a great season last season too. And they've maintained this high level pretty much the entire season. They're in with a shout into of the 3 competitions. They're very strong, got confidence. In the 3 games we played against them, it's been very tight. And in those games, we saw how difficult they are, and they've got chances in the Champions and in the league, we know that. What results would you be happy with tomorrow? And not conceding is important, I suppose. Well, that both those factors are important in a tie over 180 minutes. Not conceding goals at home and winning at home as well, very important. And that'll make it easy for us in the return leg in Madrid next week. We want to win because then the other team have got the responsibility to come back in the second leg. Before the Bernabeu game, there was talk of, and Iniesta said that Barça had to be brave. Tomorrow is another occasion when Barça have got to be brave, or is it different because it's a 2-legged tie? I always think that if these players haven't been brave, they wouldn't have been able to achieve what they've achieved over so many years, and the same applies to this season. And bravery has always been something that you found here at Barça, and in all great teams that's been the case. These are very brave players. It's a very brave team. Bravery is something that we can just take as read. A question about Simeone, what he said recently about they're going for the league title. And Tata says, well, I'm a trainer as well, I'm a coach as well, and I know what it's like for a coach. I know that he might have said one thing in public, but I know what he's thinking on the inside, really. And nothing he said. I don't think that what he's saying in the dressing room will be different from what he says in public, as he's been modest about Atletico Madrid's chances. And so what he said way back in August, I don't think it's got anything to do with the way he feels now and what he's telling his players. The intensity of Atletico Madrid, yeah, the secret of all the games we've played against Atletico Madrid this season, the intensity, that's been key. And our main weapon is the way we play the game. We've got to be Barça. Question about Neymar, he's much more comfortable on the left rather than the right. How can you help him to feel more comfortable on the pitch? how can you help him to improve his performance? Well, maybe Brazil can win the World Cup with Neymar playing on the right. When a coach has an idea in his head about playing the players in certain positions, then it's a question of the whole team together. And sometimes we sacrificed him, played him on the right, but he did help us score this against Manchester City, playing on the right. But this kind of analysis, maybe you've got to analyze at the end of a game rather than during a game, is the whole thing. The fact is, I think that Neymar can play anywhere, but of course he's going to be more comfortable in certain positions, but he can be decisive all across the front line in the three forward positions. Arda Turan and Andrés Iniesta, what do you think about those two playing tomorrow?
Yo creo que fundamentalmente que tienen un conocimiento de lo que necesita cada momento del partido.
I think that both players, they know exactly what's happening at any time in the game. Very difficult to find in any player, and they know exactly what to do at a given moment. They usually make the right decision. And it's not only that they know what the right decision is, they're able to execute that decision too.
Buenos días, estoy aquí detrás de estos señores. Yo le quería preguntar por Iniesta, precisamente. ¿Usted le recuerda a algún futbolista? Y si el hecho de que juegue él por la izquierda y Neymar por la derecha significa que a día de hoy Iniesta...
A question about the lineup, Iniesta, Neymar, where they're going to play.
No, yo creo que futbolistas como Andrés es muy difícil.
Footballers like Andrés, it's difficult to compare him to any other player. Occasionally, unique footballers appear, and Barca are lucky enough to be able to call on and to enjoy Andrés Iniesta. Andrés has played on the left, and Neymar has played on the right. And maybe that's not their best positions. Andrés much prefers to play in the center rather than on the left, and Neymar prefers to play on the left than the right. But it depends on the tactics. It depends on the tactics that the team tactics, and that's why they've been played there. Would you prefer to play the second leg at home? Well, at this stage of the competition, it's just what happens in the draws. That's just what happens in terms of who plays at home first and the referees. I don't really worry about that. You've just got to try and work out how to get through to the next round. We know that we've got a great team in front of us. We're playing home first and away. It's a question of finding the solutions to these particular problems, let's say. And I've got no complaints, and I don't want to change anything. And Cholo Simeone said there's going to be an Argentinian coach in the semi-finals when he heard the draw.
Bueno, sí, yo creo que esta es una situación que también se puede valorar mucho en nuestro país.
Yes, I'm sure that in Argentina they'll be happy with this particular situation. This doesn't often happen. But there's a big difference between there's a difference between different times. And Cholo Simeone's teams are getting better all the time in terms of their performances and in terms of results.
Hola, buen día. Cecilia Guardati de la agencia Argentina. Hola. ¿Qué tal? Sí. Te quería preguntar teniendo en cuenta el tipo de partido contra el Atlético de Madrid y que el Barça no está acostumbrado a arriesgar y a no correr detrás de la pelota. Si este partido es uno que el equipo tiene que ser uno solo y estar preparado para
A question about playing against Atletico Madrid so far, and if Barca are prepared for any eventuality, whether they want a lot of the ball. Well, in the 3 games we've played so far this season, what we've got to make sure doesn't happen this time round is that we don't lose the ball, because they're very good on the counter-attack, that especially.
La gran diferencia de estos próximos partidos con el Atlético respecto a los anteriores es el diferente estado de forma de Messi.
Big difference between earlier games this season against Atletico Madrid and now is the form of Leo Messi, because he missed certain games, he didn't play all of the other 2 games, and Tata Martino says, yes, it is important that we've got him in good form, but also a big difference is the fact that we're in a decisive part of the season and we're playing very well. Do you expect a slower game, maybe a little bit more boring game? I don't think it's going to be an open game. I think it's unlikely that that's going to happen tomorrow. But I do think that Atletico Madrid, when they play away from home, what they want to do, especially early on, they want to score an early goal. The games I've seen them playing away from home, that's been pretty obvious in what I could see. But I don't think it's going to be an open game if in the first 15 or 20 minutes there could be a goal-scoring chance. If a goal is scored in those first 15 or 20 minutes, then it could be more of an open game. But both teams know that there's a chance of coming back in the second leg. Atletico Madrid, yes, very intense. In the Calderón, they were very good out wide. And will you be looking to stop them playing out wide? It's not just a question of trying to combat what the opposition can do. We have to also, of course, bear in mind that we're Barcelona and we have to concentrate on what we can do well. We knew that Manchester City attacked well down the lines, and we did what we did. Real Madrid, for example, they're the same, and we've got players who can do the same. So situations just occur. What we also know is that Atletico Madrid are very good on the counter-attack. It's true that they play in a certain way, and we have to be aware of that. But we have to make our decisions based on the kind of game we're expecting them to play. This is true. A question about Xavi's season so far. And a question about rotations, team rotations. It's a little difficult to answer this. But I can only say that Xavi is in very good form coming into the end of the season. If I say that, that means the rotations have been good. And if the rotations haven't been good, then he wouldn't be in such good form. That's the truth. What do you expect from the crowd at Camp Nou tomorrow?
Lo hemos tenido.
Well, we've had the crowd behind us at decisive moments when we haven't been at our best, when we played against the important teams, and we expect the same from them tomorrow. We expect a full stadium, and we expect our fans right behind us. The importance of being anxious to score a goal and being calm enough to be able to score a goal, that's important. And Tata says, well, the important thing is that we have to bear in mind it is over 180 minutes this tie, and we can't take too many risks in one game in the first leg. There's a second game to come. Usually we score goals. We haven't scored many goals against Atletico Madrid. This is true. But we've got to play the game that we usually play. We have to be very organized in the way that we play, as we always do. And if we do that, then we'll have more chances. You're saying that the stage of the season, that's the big difference between the game coming up and the games that's been played so far this season between the two teams. And Tata, explaining this a little further, is saying that the fact is it's a very important game, and that's all there is to it, really. And it involves everything that a quarter-final of the Champions League involves.
Bueno, hubo mucha dureza, seguramente más de la que se podía haber tolerado, ¿no? La pregunta es si usted cree que en Europa el arbitraje o la tolerancia con esa dureza.
A question about refereeing in European competition. Will the referees in the Champions League game allow less than in a Spanish League game? Well, with the different referees we've had in the different competitions, the fact is that the team are used to it and they can adapt. It could be a more physical game as it was against Espanyol, or it could be less physical, but we're ready to play any kind of game. We're prepared to face up to any kind of situation, and we're happy to accept the referee. Sergio Busquets said after the Espanyol game that when Barca win, there are always questions. There's always controversy. Well, I talked about this after the game the other day. It's much nicer just to talk about the football rather than the refereeing. Because every win depends on some kind of refereeing decision.
Como digo siempre, yo soy en todo caso soy el que estoy experimentando este tipo de cuestiones y en todo caso tampoco soy quien para decir por qué carriles tienen que ir
it's not for me.
los análisis de los partidos.
It's not for me to say how people analyze the games. But the fact is, when I'm talking to you, I want to talk about football. And I'm not really interested in the refereeing controversies. Everybody's got opinions. I've got an opinion about everything I see, of course, including the so-called stamping of Busquets. And I've seen it a lot of times, but I'm not going to say anything about that question. And I don't really want to. Why do you not talk to us about that? Because Tata says, I've got nothing to say, and that's all.
¿Qué puedo cambiar diciendo algo? Nada.
What's going to change if I say anything?
Los entrenadores o los protagonistas del
Coaches,
fútbol,
people involved in football, there are two
cuando
options.
participamos de algo,
When we
nadie
get
nos pone un
involved,
revólver en la cabeza por participar.
when we get involved, when we say something, people
En el momento que decidamos,
people have opinions about what we say. But
lo haremos porque nadie nos pone ningún revólver en la cabeza para venir, nadie nos pone un revólver en la cabeza para ir.
nobody
No
wants
podemos cambiar nada.
comes to
la
see us
solución es te
because
quedás
of
en las
that.
condiciones
People
que
come to
estás,
see us
o si
because
no te
because
gusta,
of
te vas.
the football.
Gerardo, para Canal 13 de Chile. Entonces, para hablar de fútbol, con la idea de quebrar la defensa del Atlético el día de mañana, ¿qué opción le puede dar Alexis Sánchez al equipo?
Alexis Sánchez, will he play tomorrow?
Como siempre.
Well, he can certainly bring plenty to the team, and I've said this often before.
Porque yo las injusticias las tengo en la punta de la lengua permanentemente cada vez que doy un equipo.
I know that there's a sense of injustice every time I pick a team because I have to leave players out.
A veces hay que elegir.
And
Pero no, eso no significa que nosotros dejemos de valorar a los futbolistas que eventualmente no comiencen un partido desde el inicio.
just because a player isn't in from the start of this game, it doesn't mean that we don't value that particular player.
I va concentrat a l'hotel Princesa Sofia. Gràcies.